Okay, so when we had just left off with our ASP.NET Core 2.0 Gallery application, we had just completed writing this post method wherein we can upload a new image from our form in our upload view. So I've got the server running here, and we're just going to go take a look at the page. This was the upload page that we had worked on in the previous video. So we're going to be able to supply a title as well as perhaps some comma separated tags, and then we can browse for an image on our computer and then submit it. And what we'd like to do is to actually have this submit to file storage on Azure. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can get all that set up. So what I'm going to do now is head over to the Azure portal as it looks today, and I believe you can sign up for a free account, and the free account will give you access to some services for a limited period of time or within a certain budget that Microsoft will provide you if you're signing up for the first time. So I've got an actual paid Azure account here, but like I said, this should be free to get started if you don't yet have an account. So go ahead and create an account if you don't have one yet. And once you do, head over to portal.azure.com, get logged in, and at the time of this recording, the dashboard should look something like you see here. And what we're going to do is go over to storage accounts, and we're going to go ahead and create a new storage account. So I'm just going to click add here. And this is going to take you through a little wizard here where we can just supply some information about the storage account we'd like to create. So I'm just going to go ahead and create mine here. We're just going to call it dev image gallery. We'll keep the deployment model as resource manager and the account kind as general purpose. I'm going to make the performance standard, and for replication we're also just going to use the default read access geo-redundant storage. We won't require secure transfer for this demo, and I'm going to use the pay-as-you-go subscription, but like I said, if you have a free account, then be sure to take advantage of that here. You should see some option to use your free subscription. Go ahead and create a new resource group, and I'll leave my location as Central US. So at the very bottom, I'm also going to select pin to dashboard, and then we'll go ahead and create it. So this should just take a few seconds. So once the form submits, you should get this little animation here letting you know that the storage account is currently being deployed. And this will take a few seconds to a minute or so to complete. Okay, so once it's complete, you should see an icon here on your dashboard. If you didn't click pin to dashboard, then you can also access it from the storage accounts link here, and you should see it in the table. So I'm just going to go ahead and click here. And now you can see some information about your account, the resource group, the status and the location, that sort of thing. And so now we want to check out our access keys. So go ahead and select access keys from settings. And what we're after here is our connection string. So we're just going to go ahead and grab the first connection string that we have here, and we're going to copy it to the clipboard. So you're going to want to make sure you keep these keys secure. What I'm going to do is actually store these in user secrets. So we're going to use this connection string to have our application connect to our new storage account. But what we can do is actually use something called user secrets with ASP.NET in order to keep our connection string out of our code base. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we'll do that. So I'm going to leave this window open. I'm just going to minimize it. And what we're going to do first is actually just install the secret manager tool in our application. So we're just going to right click on the web project here, in this case simple image gallery, and we're going to go ahead and edit the CS proj. Now among the item groups where we have .NET CLI tool references, I'm just going to add another tool reference here. So the string for our include will be Microsoft.extensions.secretmanager.tools. And at the time of this video, I'll be using version 2.0.0. I'm just going to go ahead and save, and then I'm going to go ahead and rebuild the solution. And for that, we should stop debugging, of course. And so the first thing that happens here is that the NuGet packages are getting restored, including the new package that we've added here to our CS proj for managing user secrets. So now what we should be able to do is if we right click on the web project again, we should have the option to manage user secrets. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. And what we see here now is a secrets.json file that's currently empty. Well, we have the opening and closing curly brackets, but otherwise we don't have any key value pairs for our user secrets here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and add my connection string for my storage account here as a key value pair in this JSON file. So I'm going to go ahead and just call this Azure storage connection string. And then here I'm going to go ahead and paste that connection string. So be sure to generate your own, and as I mentioned, don't share it with anyone. I'm going to go ahead and remove this connection string as soon as I'm done with this part of the video. If we head back into the CS proj, you'll also notice that what we've done has generated this user secrets ID node and sort of auto-generated something like a GUID here, but this could really be anything. So the way this is working is that the secret manager tool is basically storing this JSON file, not with our solution anywhere, but actually on our system. So on Windows, this is going to be somewhere in our app data folder, and then in like the Microsoft folder, and then there's a folder called user secrets. So it's not related to our solution. The user secrets tool will handle all the implementation details regarding using the connection string that we specified here. So as long as we have the key value pair stored here, what I can do is basically reference the Azure storage connection string key here whenever I'm looking for the connection string. We're going to go ahead and close our secrets.json. Again, the user secrets ID here is actually just going to be the name of the folder in our app data directory where that user secret is stored on our system. You could rename it here and have it be something completely different, but I'm just going to leave it as it is, and we'll go ahead and close our CS proj. Now if we head back into our image controller, we're going to use our application's configuration to simply access our new user secret. So what I'm going to do is create a private field at the top of our image controller class, and it'll be of type iConfiguration. And so for this we need to bring in Microsoft extensions .configuration, and I'm just going to call this field _config, and I'm also going to create a field which is just a string called our Azure connection string, and this we just need to have an accessor for. So we're just going to actually get this, and now we'll go ahead and create our constructor so that we can use or leverage dependency injection to get the configuration for our application. Okay, Azure connection string is equal to _config, and then we just need to pass it the string that we named the key in our secrets.json file, which was just Azure storage connection string. Okay, so now we can just make use of that here in our image controller class. So we're going to need to actually perform a series of steps here to actually get access to our dev image gallery. If we head down where we see Blob service here, and we have this option to see the various containers that we might create for our storage account. We don't have any containers yet, and you can see that it's going to say click plus container to get started here. So let's go ahead and add one, and we're going to call this images. And for the public access level, I'm just going to go ahead and set this to Blob, and we'll say OK. So now we have this new images container on our storage account. So let's go ahead and minimize here, and let's start to write the various methods that we need to actually connect to that Blob storage from our controller action. So I'm going to store our container in a var here. And I'm actually going to delegate this responsibility to our image service. And we're going to have a method on it called getBlobContainer. which is going to take our connection string and the name of the storage container that we just created, which was images. So let's go ahead and use dependency injection to inject an instance of our image service. So we'll go ahead and bring in the using for that from our services namespace. Create the private field here. And we'll set it in our constructor. Okay, so now we have access to a valid image service. And so we just need to write this method get blob container. So I'm going to go ahead and control period here to go ahead and just generate that method. Then we can F12 to go over to it. So the way this is going to work is we're just going to go ahead and store a var for our storage account. So we'll have this cloud storage account, and we can go ahead and bring this in by adding a reference to Microsoft.WindowsAzure.storage. And here we should be able to simply call .parse and pass it our connection string. Next, we're going to store our blob client in a var. So we'll use our storage account, and we're just going to go ahead and create a cloud blob client. Now we need to return a reference to that container that we just created. So we'll return blob client.getContainerReference, reference, and we're going to pass it the string v here, which was just named automatically. If we go back into our image controller here, that string v actually corresponds to the name of the container that we'd like a reference to. So what I'm going to do is head back here, and we're going to call this container name, and we're going to go ahead and use it to get our container reference. And more specifically than just an object, this will return a cloud blob container object. So for this we need to bring in WindowsAzure.storage.blob. And so all this method is doing is returning a reference to the particular blob container that we're after. Or in order to get that container reference, we need to have a valid storage account, which we can access using our connection string. And then we use this cloud blob client object in order to get a direct reference to the container of the name that we specified. So let's go back into our image controller now. Now we're going to be uploading an image, so the next thing that we want to do is to actually parse what's called the content disposition response header. So let's store the content disposition in a var. We'll just call this content. And for this, we can use content disposition header value. And we'll need to go ahead and bring in HTTP headers. And here we can parse the file that we're uploading. Oops, and of course, upload new image needs to actually take that. So as an argument, so we're going to go ahead and use iForm file for this. And we need to bring in ASP.NET Core HTTP. And now content disposition header value.parse will take our file's content disposition. Now from this, we should be able to grab the file name that's being uploaded. Note that we have other properties that we can access here as well, including just simply the name. We have file name star, we have the size and the read date, a few other things here, creation date, that might be useful, depending on the structure of your application. In our case, we're just going to go ahead and grab the file name. And you'll notice that when it comes back, it's going to come back with some quotes around it. So what we need to do is to actually trim those quotes. So we've got our container, we're grabbing the file name from the upload that's coming from our form. Now we need to do a few other things here. First of all, we need to get a reference to a block blob. And we can grab that off of our container object. So we'll just use the method get block blob reference. Go ahead and pass it our file name. And then we can simply upload it. So to do that, we can call on our block blob, upload from stream async. And we're going to allow all this to happen asynchronously. So we'll go ahead and await this. We're going to make this, instead of an iAction result, we're going to make it an async task. iAction result type. And we won't return OK. And of course, to use task, we need to also bring in system.threading. And upload from stream async is a method that we need to go ahead and pass our file, and we can call open read stream on our file to pass it the stream that it requires to be uploaded. And the other thing that I'm going to do here is also go ahead and use our image service to set our image. And we're going to go ahead and pass it the title from our form, the tags, as well as the location that has been reserved for our image in Blob storage. And for that, we can grab blockblob.uri. And then finally, we're going to return redirect to action. Index, and then we'll just return back to our gallery. So now we need to go ahead and write this setImage method on our image service. So let's head into our image service. So let's go ahead and control period here to generate that method. Then we'll head into our image service and check it out. So this is actually going to receive a string title and then a string tags that we'll need to basically parse based on like a comma delimiter and then the URI value. So if we go back, in addition to the file in upload new image, we're also passing in those tags and we're passing in the title of the gallery image. Okay, so we'll F12 to get back to set image. And what we need this to do is to basically create a reference to that new image in our SQL database. So whereas previously, if we select star from images, select star from gallery images, you can see that the URLs were all these relative paths to some local image that we had in our www root folder. We now need this URL to point to the URL where the location where the images are hosted in our Azure Blob storage database. So let's go ahead and minimize this. So what we're going to say is var image is equal to a new gallery image object, where the title is simply the title string. The tags, we're going to create a new method for parse tags, and we'll pass it the string tags. The URL will be the URI. The created will be just datetime.now, just to keep things relatively simple. And URI, we actually need to go ahead and grab the absolute URI value. Okay, so once we've built up this new gallery image object, we can simply call on our context and go ahead and add this object. And then save changes. And we'll save changes async here and go ahead and await it. So we'll make our task async. And now all we have left to do is to parse these tags that we pass as a string. And we're going to pass this from the form as simply a comma separated list of image tags. So we're going to create a public list of image tags. And it's going to take as an argument, obviously, our string tags. This should be pretty simple. All that we need to do is to create a tag list. And we'll basically say tags.split on the comma. And we'll call .toList here. And then what we can do is iterate over that list. We can say for each var tag in tag list, we're going to add that to a list of image tag objects. So let's new up an empty list of image tags. And so what we can do is we can say image tags.add, and we're going to add a new image tag where the description is simply the tag. And now we can return our image tags list. We could also refactor this into something a little bit simpler. Using link, on our to list here, we could select a new image tag for each of them, where we just set the description equal to tag. This should also work, and that makes things a little bit simpler. And now we can actually just return this. And rather than toList called here, what I'll do is call toList at the end here. And that should make it happy. Okay, so pretty simple method to parse tags given a string of comma separated tags provided by our user. And so that should take care of setting the image in our database. We head back into our image controller. We can kind of see how this is going to work. Our user will submit a form that passes up a file in the form of this iForm file object. The form is also going to contain fields for some tags and an image title. And we're going to use our image service to get a reference to our images container using our Azure connection string. We need to go ahead and parse the content disposition of the file that we're passing up so that we can grab the file name. We trim off some unnecessary quotations. Then we get a reference to what's called a block blob here. We get that reference by passing it the file name that we grabbed off of the file that's getting uploaded. And then we call upload from stream async there to actually pass that file up to our Azure storage. We also take care of things in our own database here, which simply creates a reference to that image using the URI that's coming back from Azure, as well as the title and the tags that the user has set using the form. And we handle all of that in our image service with the setImage method that we were just looking at. So finally, we redirect to the index action on our gallery controller. So the next thing I want to do is just go ahead and set a breakpoint here, and we're going to start the application. So I'm going to head over to our upload form, and we're going to get an exception here that says invalid operation exception, unable to resolve service for type simple image gallery services image service when attempting to activate our image controller. So what's happening here is we need to make sure that we actually register our service in our startup class. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll head over to startup.cs. If we scroll down to where we have configure services, it looks like we are adding a scoped service of type image service. So yeah, I actually wrote the constructor wrong in our image controller. So we'll scroll up. We need this to get past an iImage service. So we're going to go ahead and stop this. And so this takes the interface iImage, And so we'll go ahead and control period to bring in a reference to that interface. And we'll do the same here for our fields so that we can set the value. And we'll do the same here for our field, private field, so that it can be set properly. And so as you can see in our startup class, when we're using dependency injection, anytime our controllers are asking for something that implements the methods that are defined on this iMimage interface, it's going to inject a scoped image service. And since we've configured our services this way, we need to make sure that we are using the interface here in our constructor, just like we used in our gallery controller as well. If we head back there, you can see that in the constructor for our gallery controller, we are indeed also using the iMimage interface here. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to start the server up again. And so now I can also remove the reference to simpleimagegallery.services. And now that we're passing in an interface, we need to go ahead and make sure that the methods that we created on the service are also defined on the interface. We kind of did that backwards, or I did it backwards. So our image service has 3 new methods on it. It's got this cloud blob container type, get blob container, which takes a string, connection string. And for this, we just need to make sure that we bring in, once again, Microsoft Windows Azure storage.dll. So we actually need to add a reference to that. We've got a task set image, which takes a string title, string tags, and URI. So we need to go ahead and bring in our system namespace, and we'll also bring in system.threading. And then finally, we also have a method that returns a list of image tags called parse tags, which just takes in the string of tags. Okay, with that, we have now defined the new methods that we provided on our image service, which implements this interface. And so that should now be satisfied. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring this back into a single pane. And it's looking like it's saying that we are not implementing the interface member getBlob container string. Oh, I see. We also need to modify iMimage to pass in our container name as well as a string. Okay, so if we go back into our image service, that's looking pretty good. So we'll head into our image controller, and we've got our breakpoint set here on the post method. So I'm just going to go ahead and start the server back up again. Okay, so let's head over to our upload form, and we're just going to call this test image. And for tags, we'll say hiking and adventure. We'll go ahead and browse for an image. I'll select this one, and we'll just go ahead and click submit. So now you can see that we have a reference to our file as an iForm file. You see that we have the file name and the content type, as well as this content disposition. We've got our tags being sent up here as this string, and we have the title as well. So let's hit F10, and we'll try to implement our image service to get a reference to the blob container. So now we have this container object. You can see the storage URI, which contains the URI to our storage account that we had set up. I'm going to hit F10 here to get the content, and then F10 again to get the file name. So you can see the file name is hike.jpg. Now we're going to get a reference to a block blob. And so we can see that object here. And then we'll call upload from stream async here. Now we're going to use our image service to actually set that image in our database. And then finally, we'll redirect to the gallery. So I'm just going to hit F5. And now we're back in our gallery. And indeed, you can see the new image that we have here in our gallery is the one that we just uploaded. So we can click on it. We can see it full size. We can go back to the gallery. And note that if we inspect this, we can see that the image source is now coming from dev imagegallery.blob core.windows.net, which is indeed hosted on Azure, whereas these other images here are hosted locally. So if we go into our database and we select star from gallery images again, we can see that indeed the URL for our test image here is pointing to our blob storage on Azure. So that's pretty cool. We can also now select star from image tags, and we can see that we have some new records for the tags that we parsed. I can see that we have a slight bug in that we're including a space here. So we also need to go ahead and trim out spaces when we parse tags. We'll take care of that in the next video. We'll also put our tags to some use by displaying them in the detail view here, and perhaps building out some type of search functionality as well. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. Note also something pretty important here is that we don't have the connection string that we use to connect to Azure anywhere in source code. So that's currently just stored locally on the development machine that we're working on. And so we don't need to actually worry about having that checked into source control. If you were deploying this to a server somewhere, say a separate dev environment or like staging or production, and you were running your app on one of those machines, then you might have secrets stored specifically on those servers, either as environment variables or through some other means. But for development purposes, this is really nice that we can actually use cloud storage and not share our connection string publicly. So that's it for this video. I'll have one more video to follow up with. I'll have one more video in this series to follow up with, in which, like I said, we'll do some more styling of the detail pages here to put out some of the tags, and perhaps also implement a search functionality. I also had a request to create an upvote and downvote system for images. That shouldn't be too difficult to implement either, so perhaps we'll knock that out as well in the final video. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.